The Nickel Samurai was going to confess something. And by confess, I'd wager he was going to reveal something about himself. Which means that Juan Corrida, posing as the Nickel Samurai, was going to speak about Matt on guard. Yes, I guess that is what it would mean. But if that's the case... But that's not a confession, that's a public disclosure. Miss Andrews, I can see why you are pros at what you do. Pardon me? Yes, just as you say, the press conference was set up by Juan. Miss Andrews, please offer us an explanation for this. I was the one who asked to help set it up. And the person who prepared the second costume for him, that was also me. You? Juan had bet everything on the Jammin' Ninja this year, and if he lost the Grand Prix, he was going to make sure Matt was going down with him. That's what he thought anyway. He was going to ruin him, huh? It looked like somehow Juan had his hands on a secret so powerful that it would destroy Matt's acting career had it been revealed. What? That's a bold claim. And do you know what the secret of Mr. On Guard is, Miss Andrews? That's something only Juan knew. I don't know what it is. Oh, I see. I've probably been coming off quite suspicious to everyone, but that's to be expected. I've been trying to protect Matt after all. Protect Matt on guard. And yet again, another strange bit of truth comes to light, it seems. Miss Andrews, if you could please tell us the truth about your behavior. Yes, Your Honor, I understand. Ooh. From the moment I saw the crime scene, I had a feeling that Matt was the murderer. Matt had to kill Juan no matter what. And he didn't have an alibi for what he was doing at the time of the murder. My thoughts were confirmed by the evidence, of course, the button and the knife. But I'm Matt's manager, so I felt I had to protect him. This does account for everything. Well, I am the logical type. We're finally seeing her true self. She is more nervous than a scared rabbit. I have to protect her. If there are no objections, I feel that I can pass a verdict based on this testimony. Now then, Mr. Wright, if you please. Looks like somehow everything has swung to the opposite end of the scale again. That just means I have to put my weight into this and turn her logic upside down. Protecting Matt. Why would you assume that? Would you say that was your intuition speaking to you? Don't confuse my methods of reasoning with your own. Oh. If you want to prove that someone did something, you need the 3 things. 3 things? A motive, an opportunity to commit the crime, and finally, decisive evidence. And if you think these 3 things through, the answer becomes quite clear. You should have already known that, Phoenix. They didn't teach that to us in school, at least from what I remember. May I continue now? So would you say this need came from the press conference? Yes, do you know why Juan chose that event in that hotel for the conference? Because that was when he could cause the most damage to the public's beloved Matt on Guard. And you know of this plan, didn't you, Miss Andrews? Yes, because I was the one who set up the conference and prepared the costume. But I'm sure Mr. On Guard himself didn't know anything about the press conference. Oh, really? Can you show me any proof he didn't know about the press conference? He said so. Anyway, the important thing here is that this information was not in your testimony. No, the evidence is that he said he didn't hear about it. I mean, you can deny that evidence and say it's whatever, but that is what I would like. That is his own word. Yes, I agree, Miss Andrews. Please correct your testimony if you please. And plus, since he's the defendant, his word is allowed in court. Grasping at straws now, are we, Mr. Wright? What's his motive? Has Mr. Oh, well, to hide the blackmail. Has Mr. On Guard done something to hurt or betray you personally? Why do you ask? You were the one who helped Mr. Corrida with this press conference, and that event was supposed to bring down Mr. On Guard, yet you still helped out. Yeah, you lose your best client. The person on trial right now is Mr. On Guard, right? What the witness was thinking, helping the victim with this plan, is none of our concern. In any case, this means that the defendant had a motive to kill. Why do I keep doing this to myself? Just hang it up. But didn't you already testify earlier that Mr. On Guard was taking a nap in his room? Are you telling me now that that too was a lie so you could cover Mr. On Guard? I'm not telling you anything of the sort. When I went to get him for the show, he honestly was sleeping. However, as to whether he was sleeping the entire time, that I cannot say. I was too busy setting up the stage at the time. I keep trying, but I can find no flaws with what Miss Andrews has said. I can't say the same for some people here in this courtroom, however. The judge is glaring straight at Mia. He's glaring at you, smart guy. Fucking Phoenix. Yeah, that button wouldn't have been there, by the way. You can hardly call the knife decisive evidence. The fingerprints on the knife could very well have been clever camouflage. Also, you wouldn't have known that it was On Guard's fingerprints. You wouldn't have been able to tell that it was his fingerprints. Not like you can see them. Then what about the button? The button? It's clear from the crime scene that the victim and the murderer fought. And during the fight, the killer ripped the button from the Jammin' Ninja's costume. You're talking about this button, correct? That button was found in the pants of Matsukama, isn't that correct? I would think that makes it very decisive evidence. You didn't know that at the time, though. Looks like you were outfoxed again, Mr. Wright. Anyway, the knife doesn't prove a thing. Please fix your testimony. I can't stand the sight of a man who can't gracefully accept his defeat. Thank goodness Mia can still look at me. With an icy stare, yes. Miss Andrews, for Mr. Wright's sake, please add this information to your testimony. And how do you know that? When the ends of the thread of the button of the costume are matched up, they were found to fit together perfectly. Or so I heard. I've heard that before too. But why would Miss Andrews know about this case down to such a fine detail? Don't look at me like that, just because I'm prepared and you are not. I thought I had heard this time for sure. No, he died instantly, didn't he? The knife was at the end. Yeah, he was strangled to death. There wouldn't have been a fight for whatever. If there's anything to trip her up on, it has to be here. But where and what? Because when you're strangling someone with a cloth, you're not going to be standing in front of them doing it. You're going to be behind them. And in this case, since he was sitting in the chair, it's more likely that you'd get behind him and strangle him with the chair as a leverage. So I would definitely say that. This is the victim's autopsy report. It clearly states that the cause of death was strangulation by scarf. Strangulation? The knife stab to the victim was done after the victim had already died. I mean, she's not gonna fucking know that. And what does that mean? Let's examine the evidence. This button has the victim's blood on it, which would mean that it was ripped off the costume when? After the knife was stabbed into the victim. Exactly, which means it's impossible that this button was torn off during the victim's final struggle, because the victim was strangled to death in that fight. That's right, Miss Andrews. There is no way this button was ripped off during the struggle. This button was consciously pulled off the victim's already dead body. Again, let's say, like, she can just say, yeah, okay. I just figured it was ripped off during the fight. How the fuck am I supposed to know? I didn't see it. She could say that, and it's like, well, good fucking point. Well, what's the meaning of this right? So what if the button was torn off the body after the victim had already died? What does that change? Let me ask you one simple question, Mr. Edgeworth. Why was the button torn off? What purpose did that serve? What purpose? We now know this button was not torn off during the fight, so the murderer took the time and effort to purposely rip this from the victim's body. That would mean that the murderer had something in mind, wouldn't it? Mr. Wright, does this mean? Does this mean you know what the murderer wanted to do with the button? To pin the crime on guard. There's only one logical reason for doing something like that. It was to pin the crime on Mr. On Guard. There's no way anyone would put a bloodied button in their own pants. That's right, Mr. On Guard was set up. By the real killer, of course. And the real murderer is... Well, Mr. Wright, who in the world is the real killer, then? Finally. I can't believe I managed to bring this trial all the way up to this point. Phoenix, you can't let your guard down yet. Not until the very end. The real killer, the person who planned to frame Mr. On Guard is... This sucks. Fuck you. Fuck you. Miss Adrian Andrews. I choose you. Go. You are Mr. Corita's killer. What? Nice without her glasses, though. Order, Mr. Wright. This is a very grave matter. Do you have any evidence that supports your charge? Any evidence? All the evidence points to Miss Andrews. How preposterous. You can't stick any of that on me. I can't, can I? Would you care to test me? Then what about this knife? The knife was used to stab the victim after he'd already been strangled to death. It was used to throw suspicion onto Mr. On Guard, naturally. A knife covered in the defendant's fingerprints could only be taken from his room. And the only one who had dinner with him and knew which knife to take was you. Huh. Stop bullying. Then, what about the button that was found in Matt's Hakama? This button was removed from the victim's body after he had already died. The only person who could have done that, so were the person who found his body or the killer. However, if Mr. On Guard was the real killer, there's no way he would have put such incriminating evidence in his own Hakama. Stop it. The only person who could have put this button into Mr. On Guard's Hakama is the person who went to wake him from his nap, which is you, yet again, Miss Andrews. See, what about the empty guitar case? That is also another piece of evidence that incriminates Miss Andrews. That costume was used to hide the real killer's identity as they fled the crime scene. Now, who could have known that there was such a costume inside the guitar case? It could only have been the person who prepared the costume for the victim. And that person is you, Miss Adrian Andrews. No, why? But Miss Andrews' fingerprints were nowhere to be found on the guitar case, and it was you who proved that she was not wearing gloves at the time. That's right. That's because she did not intend on leaving any prints. If anyone had found out that she had touched the case, they would have asked her why. So to avoid leaving any prints, she used a towel or something else to open it. Any proof of that, buddy? But the glass of tomato juice is a different story. Miss Andrews purposely left her fingerprints on the glass to show that yes, indeed, she was the classic day's discoverer of a dead body. Why would she want to be caught in the oh, whatever. And to top it off, there is this photo. A photo of the killer as they exited the scene of the crime. No reasonable person on Earth can believe this Nickel Samurai's Mr. On Guard. He would be much too short for his own costume if it was him. Speaking of how tall people are, Miss Andrews, you're also kind of short in stature, are you not? Please stop. I agree. Well, how about it, Miss Andrews? I've got her this time. Miss Andrews? I refuse to testify. What was that? There's a law. It says I can't be forced to testify about something if it can incriminate me. Yes, you can plead the fifth. Well, yes. You are absolutely correct, Miss Andrews. The law does provide us with a way to avoid self-incrimination. Well, I mean, it's a, constitution, but yeah, sure. Law. You could say it's a law. By allowing a witness to not testify if the testimony can cause damage to themselves. What? Phoenix, you're in fucking America. Kind of an amalgamation, but you're still in America. Pleading the fifth is not something most people would think to do on the spot. Yeah, you would. What? That's why most defendants don't actually testify. Because it's stupid. You're just bound to screw up because it's so much easier to screw up than like accidentally get caught in some wordplay. Actually, thinking back to yesterday in Mr. Engarde's room. Adrian Andrews? Yes? Think hard about what we just discussed, understood? Alright. That's it. That's when Francisca pointed this idea into her head. She must have told Miss Andrews to not testify if things look bad. You did a good job proving everything up to this point at Phoenix, but there's still one thing you haven't done. Something I haven't done. What's wrong, right? Are you finished already? Run out of evidence? She refuses to testify. I literally can't do anything else. What's so humorous, Mr. Edgeworth? I'm sure you realize this as well, Your Honor. But everything the good lawyer here has proven up to this point is meaningless. What? Everything you have proven is circumstantial. Circumstantial? If you have enough circumstantial evidence, it doesn't matter. You don't need hard evidence necessarily. Yeah, circumstantial. You have yet to prove a single piece of definitive proof. I don't have to. Proof that Miss Andrews did in fact harbor a wish to murder Mr. Corrida. Oh, don't make me do this, you piece of shit. You know damn well why she would. Miss Andrews, did you want to kill Mr. Corrida? I believe this may lead to me incriminating myself, so I will abstain from answering. But Miss Andrews, if you do that, it would be the same as admitting your guilt, don't you think? Not at all. Because you can't actually say that. Maybe so or maybe not. There is nothing to prove it either way. Because once she pleads the fifth, you can't assume guilt just because she pleads the fifth. You can't do that. That's actually illegal. Besides, you don't even know what crime I would be guilty of due to my silence. No. She's taking that defiant attitude again. That's what I love. Mia, what should we do? Somehow we've landed in the worst possible situation. I think we have reached a certain conclusion at this point in time. Miss Adrian Andrews has refused to testify, and the defense's theory that she is the actual murderer has not been fully sustained with solid definitive proof. But that's not true. In this situation, there is only one thing this court can do, and that is to declare a recess. Recess? I request that both the prosecution and defense look further into this matter. And at tomorrow's trial, tomorrow. We don't have a tomorrow. If we don't get a not guilty verdict today, then... Please wait, Your Honor. That's not necessary. The trial, please continue the trial. What are you sweating for? Your client is getting one more day to live, isn't he? That's not it. This isn't about that. Edgeworth, I know you know who the real killer is. Please let the trial continue. If I don't get the verdict, then Maya... But it's impossible to continue as long as the witness refuses to testify. Now then, the court is. It is not impossible for this trial to continue. Mr. Edgeworth, what are you? It's true Miss Andrews holds the right against her self-incrimination. However, if the topic of conversation were something unrelated to whether she may be guilty of, then she has no right to withhold testimony. Yes, that is very true, but... Actually, there is one little thing that I'm curious about. Miss Andrews. When you found the victim's dead body, you poured yourself a glass of juice? Yes, and? I can't help but think how unnatural that is. Usually when one finds a body, they're shaken up, not stirring a glass of juice. Awful. So many actions were unnatural. Before you speak, I want to state that if you have a reason behind your actions, I would like you to testify to that effect. Testify? Your Honor, I would like to request that the witness testify again as to what happened when she first discovered the victim's body. Whatever we find out in this testimony should in no way implicate the witness. I don't know what it is about Edgeworth today, but I can't get a good read off of him. Is he friend or foe? I just don't know. He is all over the place right now. The court acknowledges the prosecution's request. Miss Andrews, if you please. A glass of juice, I didn't really pour it for myself. I was surprised when I walked into the room and saw it in a messy state. And Juan, he was sitting slumped over and tired looking in the corner. When I saw him sitting like that, the thought that he was dead didn't cross my mind. To be honest, I thought he had just fainted or something. So I went to pour him some juice. There's a fucking knife sticking out of his chest, honey. Come on. When I realized that he was dead, that's when I knocked the flower vase over. Come on. Don't do this to me. So you poured that glass of juice for the victim. Why didn't you say so in your earlier testimony? I didn't think I needed to include something so trivial. Phoenix, please be careful here. If you can't find anything wrong with this testimony, there's nothing left. I know. Edgeworth, what the heck is going on in that brain of yours? Now then, Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination. But there wasn't anyone else in the room, right? Of course not. Then who did you pour it for? Mr. Wright, there is a rhyme and reason for everything. Can you wait just a little longer for it to be revealed to you? In other words, Wright, be quiet and listen. Precisely. I couldn't have said it better myself. So it was a mess. Are you sure it wasn't messy because of your fight with Mr. Corita? I understand your frustrations in not being able to prove your theory, however, before you go accusing people of crimes, go find yourself some evidence. And then what did you see next, witness? And Juan, he was slumped over and tired looking in the corner. Slumped over? Yes, he was just sitting there with his head tilted forward, eyes closed. He really looked like he was sleeping. Is it just me, or did that right there sound a little odd? I'm sorry, baby, but come on. Come on. You can't look at this and be like, oh yeah, he's totally not dead. There's a fucking gold knife sticking out of his chest. So you honestly didn't think he was dead when you found him? No, not at all. Even though this is what you saw when you discovered the body. What is the meaning of this? Isn't it obvious, Your Honor? There's a knife sticking straight out of Mr. Corita's chest. Anyone who saw this scene would have immediately thought that there was a dead man. Well, or just a very severely injured one. Well, you see, I doubt a single person in the world would mistake this for someone who fainted, and then so nonchalantly go pour something to drink. Your point is, Miss Andrews, your testimony just now, it was all one giant lie. And your lie has proven one thing very clear, that you are the real killer. No! Please, I swear to fucking Christ. Looks like the defense has somehow brought the ugly truth to light. I declare mistrial. No! The defendant, Mr. Madangard, is not guilty after all. That's impossible. You're wrong. Miss Andrews, try to have some composure. It wasn't me. It wasn't me, I tell you. It was Matt, I swear it. He's the one who killed Juan. But you were the one who refused to testify, and your reason for not doing so was that you might end up incriminating yourself. That's because... Miss Andrews, I will give you one last chance. What exactly are you hiding that may incriminate you? I refuse to testify. Then there is no need for the court to continue any further. Mr. Madame Guard's innocence has been clearly demonstrated. Is it over? Have we found the truth at last? What's wrong, Phoenix? Usually the real killer confesses his or her guilt. Now that I think about it, this is the first time someone hasn't. That's because she's an innocent girl. Trust me. And now I would like to hand down my verdict for Mr. Madame Guard. Thank you, Edgeworth. Your Honor, the prosecution feels that it would be premature to pass down a verdict at this time. What? The reason is quite simple. This witness has yet to speak the absolute real truth. The absolute real truth? What are you? Witness, don't you understand yet? Huh? I don't know who planted this silly idea in your head, but as long as you protect yourself through your silence, Madame Guard will go free, and in his place, you will become the guilty party. That's a lie. I don't believe you. What? I was told if I spoke, then it would be all over. Matt would never be declared guilty. What in the world is she talking about? She lost it. I can't speak about it. I'm too scared. It's Franziska von Karma. Don't you remember, Phoenix? Miss Andrews lives by gripping tightly onto the words of others. Because she doesn't have the strength to believe in herself. Then, right now, Miss Andrews is. Yesterday, she was tossed a lifesaver by Miss Von Karma. Don't say a word, no matter what happens. If you do, Madame Guard will be acquitted. Miss Andrews undyingly believes in those words right now and is clinging onto them. Then what should we do? This is the first time I've ever come across anything like this. But Miss Andrews has to be the killer, right? All we have to do now is get our not guilty. That is our only priority. It wasn't me, I'm begging you. Please believe me. I didn't kill Juan. Help, please. Someone, help me. Gladly. Coming to your aid. Because come on now. Obviously I'm gonna believe her. Got a soft spot. Yes, Your Honor. The court can't continue on like this. Therefore, I'd like to hear what you intend to do. What I intend to do. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to say? Right, I suggest you think very carefully about this. Think about what this witness did and what she did not do. And think about who is the real mastermind behind this crime. Who's the real mastermind? Isn't that obvious? There's no one else it could be except the woman crying over there, right? Of course the woman crying over there is innocent. Come on now. What will you do? What kind of man are you, Mr. Phoenix Wright? Fuck the not guilty verdict. She ain't going down. I have to win a complete acquittal today. There's no way around that. But I can't bring myself to do it like this. Not when she's making a face like that. Miss Andrews, I would like to know what you are really hiding. Mr. Wright, are you sure you know what you're doing? Sure. Mr. On Guard would get an acquittal, but in his place, you would be found guilty. Is this how you really want this trial to end? Be quiet. How dare you? You're trying to trick me. That's enough. I commend you for trying, Mr. Edgeworth. However, it's clear that the defense's theory is the truth. You're wrong. Such a shame. I'd hoped things wouldn't come to this, however. What is it, Mr. Edgeworth? Miss Andrews, since you absolutely refuse to testify, it falls on my shoulders to disclose this to the court. Stop. Mr. Edgeworth? This witness, how should I put this? She has an illness. What? And because of this illness, she has tried to commit suicide in the past. Stop. Please stop. No matter how much you want to hide it, it's no use. I have the evidence right here. That's the second part of the suicide report. The attempted suicide report. What will you do now, witness? You know what I am about to do, don't you? I will now reveal to the court the true nature of the pitiful woman known as Adrian Andrews. The secret of her codependent nature. Having other people know about it scares her more than anything else in the world. Please, please stop. I beg you. If people find out, I'll... If you're going to say you would choose death, that is of no concern to me. Edgeworth, you'd be so cold. However, before you die, I will put the truth from your the truth from your breathing lips, no matter what I have to do. So, will you tell the court yourself, or shall I? Either is fine with me. I'll talk, but please help me. Gladly. Nothing matters anymore. No, it's okay. I'm fine. My crime. You did nothing wrong. Stop it. Stop.